He gave me STD and abandoned me while I was pregnant with his kid. Later, I found a way to make him pay for that.
My name is Ava, 22F.
It's hard to say, but in the past 2 years, my life has been unbelievably turned upside down. I never imagined I'd get caught up in such a dark and twisted story of betrayal. 2 years ago, when I was 20, my life hit a bit of a snag. I was struggling with academic pressure and some family drama. It felt like I was adrift at sea. That's when Mark appeared.
He was 8 years older than me, successful, mature, and most importantly, he knew how to talk. He listened to me, he understood me, and he always had the right words to soothe everything. I'd never been in love before, and to me, he was like a prince stepping out of a fairy tale.
Mark painted a rosy future I'd never dared to dream of. He called me his dream girl, the one he wanted to build a happy family with, have children, and spend his life beside. He made me feel like I was the only woman in the world, that I was everything to him. I trusted him, absolutely. At the time, I thought I'd found my destiny and my first love, my savior when everything around me was stormy. Looking back 2 years later, I see how naive and foolish I was. Our relationship continued for about a year like that. Everything seemed calm and sweet, at least on the surface. But even with my inexperience, I started to notice subtle signs emerging. Mark became noticeably busier, always having this or that to do, and the time he spent with me wasn't as passionate as before. He always had his phone glued to his side, and whenever a message or call came in, he'd immediately go somewhere else to answer it. I had a feeling something was wrong, but I kept reassuring myself at the time. Then one day, that damn hunch turned out to be spot on. I remember Mark was in the shower and his phone kept vibrating. Normally I'd never touch it, but for some reason that day, as if compelled by something, I picked it up to look. My heart pounded. I unlocked the phone and a message popped up from an unknown number. "My love, where are you? You said you'd pick me up. Why is it taking so long?" My whole world collapsed at that moment. My hands and feet trembled, my head spun. He was cheating. The man I trusted implicitly, the one I thought I was his dream girl, was blatantly deceiving me. The pain wasn't just betrayal, it was the feeling of being lied to, of being made a fool of. That first feeling of being deceived still feels awful when I think about it now. My hand shaking uncontrollably, I confronted Mark. I thought he'd deny everything, or at least show remorse and beg for my forgiveness. But no, he didn't bother to deny a single word. With cold eyes, he looked at me as if I were a stranger. Then he uttered words so heartless I couldn't believe my ears. "You're not good enough, Ava," he said, his voice flat as if reading a report. "You're too childish. You're not the type of person I want to settle down and marry. You should feel lucky that you were an option for me while I was looking for someone more suitable. The experience I gave you was already wonderful. What more do you want?" He even said that to me directly. Hearing it, my blood felt like it froze. Oh my God, the man I considered my whole world, who once swore he loved me, now told me I was nothing. At that moment, contrary to what most people would think, which would be to kick him far away, I couldn't accept the truth. I was too naive, too foolish back then. He was my first love, after all. My entire world revolved around Mark. I clung to him through pain and humiliation. I cried, begging him to come back. I told him I'd do anything, that I'd tried to change myself, accept any conditions for him to stay. I thought my acceptance would make him pity me, that he'd come back. But no, he just exploited my weakness. He kept me in an undefined relationship, continuing to manipulate me. I just kept sinking into that mess with no way out. Caught between the pain of betrayal and a sliver of fragile hope, each day I drifted, unsure of what the future held. I stubbornly held on to the belief that my love could change him, change everything. Then, one day, amidst that emotional chaos, I received news that was both a glimmer of hope and a profound fear. After being nearly 2 months late, I bought a test and 2 lines appeared. I was pregnant. My heart felt like it stopped. I was happy, yet worried. Happy to have a tiny life growing inside me, but worried because I knew how rotten this relationship already was. Would my child have both a mother and a father? Who doesn't want their child to have a complete family? I called Mark to tell him. At first, when he heard the news, he was visibly stunned, silent for a moment. Then he started saying this was our chance to fix everything.
He said, "This is when I need to become a better man, a better father for our child." He promised to cut off everything else, to be completely devoted to our family. It was strange, but when I heard him say that, I immediately felt like a moth drawn to a flame. I truly believed he would change. And Mark did seem to change, at least during the first few months of my pregnancy. He made an effort to attend prenatal appointments with me. He acted very caring and attentive. Several times during ultrasounds, looking at our baby flickering on the screen, he would coo and call me the mother of his child. I naively believed those acts, thinking to myself, having this child truly is wonderful. It would be the reason he changed. I wanted to believe it so badly, and I wanted to give my child a complete family. And, for better or worse, Mark would finally belong to me. But then came the important routine prenatal checkup, where we were supposed to hear the baby's heartbeat more clearly and see her form better. Mark couldn't make it. He claimed an urgent, sudden commitment. It was a familiar excuse that immediately filled me with an ominous feeling. I lay on the examination table, my heart heavy with anxiety, wondering where he was, who he was with, and how my baby was doing. Dr. Eva looked at me with clear concern. Then she said something I remember vividly to this day. "Ava, it seems you might have chlamydia. I think you should get tested to be sure." Oh my God, I was in complete shock hearing those words. My ears rang, my head spun. I stammered, questioning the doctor because I simply couldn't believe it. Seeing my reaction, Dr. Eva began to reassure me, then explained in more detail. She talked about the risk of transmitting the infection to the baby during childbirth. However, at that moment, nothing was certain, and if it did happen, early detection meant it could be prevented. Even though Dr. Eva was understanding and tried to calm me, hearing that left me numb. My whole world completely collapsed. An extreme sense of fear and overwhelming guilt weighed heavily on me. So I immediately went for the test, and the results came back, making my world feel like it stopped. Everything I had tried to believe in shattered. I was certain I hadn't been with anyone else besides Mark. He was the only one. So where did this disease come from? The answer was obvious, but I didn't dare to think about it. I realized I had been deceived by him yet again, and this time it was far more cruel. What had my baby done to deserve this? It was all because I had been too foolish, too blind to trust a scoundrel like Mark.
I called him immediately, my voice trembling, recounting everything the doctor had said along with the test results. I thought with such irrefutable evidence he would have no way to deny it. But no, he started his familiar game. He blamed everything on me. "Where did you get it from that you dare to question me now? How would I know who you've been seeing?" I listened to him, my throat tight, unable to utter a word. He completely denied all responsibility, using insulting words to make me doubt myself. He even threatened to leave if I made a big deal out of it, if I told anyone. I was scared. I didn't dare to say anything else. I fell silent again, accepting my fate. And then he commanded, his voice decisive. This must be kept absolutely secret. He said it was to protect both our honors and to protect our child's future. The future he kept promising would include marriage after the baby was born. At that moment, I just wanted to believe, to cling to that false promise so I wouldn't completely collapse. And so, I sank even deeper. The psychological pressure from the pregnancy, from Mark's issues, and that damned illness made the rest of my pregnancy quite unstable. I was constantly sick, feeling utterly exhausted and drained, yet I had to keep going for my baby. During this time, Mark started being erratically on and off. Sometimes he'd be around, taking care of me, but most of the time he'd vanish as if he'd never existed in my life. Then my baby decided to arrive earlier than expected. I started having labor pains. My heart pounded, partly from pain, partly from worry. Mark was nowhere to be found. My hands trembling, I immediately called him. He picked up, his voice sounding groggy. I told him I was in a lot of pain and the baby was coming soon. He promised to come right away, his voice sounding hurried. "I'll be right there, don't worry." Hearing that gave me a little peace of mind. I tried to endure each contraction. Time passed. 1 hour, 2 hours, then 3, and still no sign of Mark. His phone was off. I called dozens of times only to get long, hopeless rings. The physical pain mingled with the pain in my heart. I lay there, alone, amidst the agonizing contractions on the hospital bed. Finally, the baby was born. Her first cry echoed, like a thunderbolt striking my heart. I looked at her, tears of happiness streaming down my cheeks. She was beautiful, tiny, my everything. But in that sacred moment, the ultimate feeling of betrayal surged. This innocent baby deserved to have her father by her side, yet I had to welcome her into this world alone. That pain burrowed deep into my soul, hurting even more than the labor pains. Lying in the post-delivery room, my body ached, and my mind was a tangled mess. My eyes were glued to my phone, waiting for a message, a call from Mark. I still held on to a tiny bit of hope that he was just unexpectedly busy, and then he would come. Clinging to that hope, I drifted off to sleep, overwhelmed by all the accumulated exhaustion that had weighed on me. But that hope was quickly and mercilessly extinguished. The next morning, I scrolled through social media, and then a public post appeared like a bolt of lightning. It was Mark. He was dressed in a Playboy outfit and smiling brightly, attending some party last night that I knew nothing about. On either side of him were several young women, far more beautiful than me. I was frozen. Just a few hours earlier, I had been struggling to give birth to his child, alone. Yet at that very moment, he was enjoying a perfect life, like a bachelor party, searching for his ideal lover. The physical pain of childbirth, the emotional pain of betrayal, and the feeling of being blatantly replaced all merged, driving me almost insane. It turned out that all his promises of family and a future were lies. I was just a fool, merely an option in his life. Lying there in the cold hospital room, I felt like a zombie. Both my body and mind were shattered. I fell into an inescapable spiral of self-doubt. My hand unconsciously scrolled through my phone, searching for Mark. I looked at the photos he posted, smiling brightly beside other girls. He was doing the things he used to do with me. The tender gestures, the sweet words, all things I once had but would never receive again. I kept looking endlessly, then tormenting myself. Why wasn't I good enough? That question replayed in my mind like a haunting refrain. Why could he be happy with other girls while I was in labor with his child? The feeling that I was just an old discarded item, a terrible backup plan, gnawed at me little by little. Life truly was hell. Absolutely. For weeks afterwards, I was in a daze, sinking into a severe postpartum depression, heavier than I had ever imagined. I practically neglected myself, barely eating, losing all interest in life. There were even times I felt guilty towards my baby. I couldn't be a good mother when I myself was so shattered. All day, I just wanted to lie in bed, stare at the ceiling, and cry. At that time, the only person by my side was my best friend, Sarah. I remember one time Sarah came over and found me just lying there while the baby cried, and I couldn't even bring myself to pick her up. Sarah looked at me, her eyes a mix of pity and anger. She said directly, "Ava, you can't go on like this. You have your baby. You have to pull yourself together." Seeing me deteriorate, she firmly pulled me out of that swamp. She forced me to face reality, to find a way to overcome it, no matter how painful. And so Sarah practically dragged me to see a therapist, Dr. Grace. At first, I wasn't enthusiastic at all, thinking, what could talking solve? But Dr. Grace was different. She didn't just listen, she helped me reevaluate everything. She had experience with toxic relationships and self-esteem issues, so she understood me deeply. In each session, she helped me untangle the knots in my heart. She taught me how to process the trauma Mark had inflicted and how to rebuild my shattered self-worth. I still went for regular STD treatments at the clinic, both to ensure my health and to prevent any impact on my child. Fortunately, the disease caused no harm to the baby. However, every time I went there, I felt dejected.
But who would have thought that this very place, filled with dread, would be where I encountered an unbelievable twist? That day, while I was waiting, another woman walked in. She was very beautiful, with striking fiery red hair. Because of her hair, she looked quite familiar, but I couldn't remember where I'd seen her before. Noticing me staring, she looked back and smiled. Her smile held a hint of profound sadness. It seemed she too was going through something difficult, just like me. Thanks to Sarah's and Dr. Grace's efforts, I understood that connection was essential for overcoming suffering. Though I was hesitant, I bravely struck up a conversation with her. Surprisingly, Chloe and I clicked instantly, like long-lost friends. We talked incredibly well together. Afterwards, I met her a few more times at the clinic, and we even arranged to go for coffee. Opening up truly helped me find a friend like her. Gradually, through these experiences, I began to understand my self-worth, not through someone else's words, but by actively creating it for myself. It was like finding a glimmer of light after a long, dark tunnel. However, during a routine checkup with Dr. Eva, she suddenly looked at me meaningfully and asked, "Ava, what was the name of that boyfriend who used to come with you for your prenatal appointments?" "Mark," I replied, surprised by the sudden question, but still polite. "Why do you suddenly ask about him?" "Mark too? What a coincidence." "Surely not," Dr. Eva mumbled after hearing the name, making me curious and suspicious. I immediately asked, "What's wrong?" Dr. Eva seemed hesitant, or at least she appeared very reluctant. As if deep in thought, she finally replied, "It's really not good to say this. It feels like I'm going against medical ethics. But you're quite close with Chloe, aren't you? I see you two talking often. She also had an ex-boyfriend named Mark. You two really have a strong connection, haha." Dr. Eva's answer was like a lightning bolt in a clear sky. Suddenly, I remembered where I had seen Chloe before. Pulling out my phone, I clicked on Mark's social media profile again, something I hadn't done in a long time. I scrolled up, and sure enough, there she was, Chloe, one of the girls Mark had posted pictures with. Everything collapsed. Fate was incredibly ironic. After that appointment, I decided to contact Chloe to meet privately. Initially, the atmosphere was heavy, filled with caution. Chloe looked at me, and it seemed she also sensed that something was wrong. I didn't hide it anymore. I opened Mark's profile and asked if she knew who he was. "Why do you know this bastard?" Chloe asked, her eyes wide open with unbelievable shock. "He's the one who betrayed me, infected me with an illness, and then abandoned me on the very day I gave birth to his first daughter," I answered resolutely, no longer hesitating. Chloe's eyes immediately shifted from horror to extreme pain. Then she just hugged me tightly and burst into tears. I couldn't hold back either, and the two of us just held each other and cried in the middle of the cafe. Everything was truly a mess. But then, as things gradually calmed down, we began to share our stories, piecing together each fragment. Chloe told me about Mark, about his promises, his disappearances, exactly like what I had experienced. She showed me messages, photos. I also recounted my story, about how foolishly I had clung to him. We were like moths born from the same mother. It was truly painful. And then Chloe shared a detail that still sends shivers down my spine. On the day Mark broke up with Chloe, she discovered he had gone to name another baby. He had been at someone else's birth, naming a single mother's child, with intentions you can probably guess. Yet, while his own biological daughter was being born, he heartlessly abandoned both me and our child. Mark's cruelty far exceeded anything I could have imagined. At that moment, both Chloe and I realized that Mark was a psychopath and a complete scoundrel. He was a danger to all women in this world. And we had to expose him. We couldn't let him continue to wreak havoc on other women. Immediately after that, Chloe and I plunged into gathering evidence. Every old message, every photo, even medical receipts related to the STD, we collected it all. I knew some medical records were sensitive, but the doctor allowed me to use the necessary information to protect myself and my daughter. Once everything was ready, we decided to make it all public. No more sneaking around. We were going big. We posted our story on social media, directly tagging Mark. Not only that, we also sent the information to mutual friends and even some close family members of his. Our goal was for everyone to know the true face of this scoundrel. The impact was far greater than I had imagined. Karma hit Mark like a storm. He was immediately boycotted and condemned. I heard that his unethical behavior being exposed affected the company's image, so he couldn't continue working there. But that wasn't all. Chloe and I also jointly sued Mark. I demanded child support, while Chloe sought compensation for medical expenses and other damages. I don't know where the lawsuit will lead, but at the very least, we forced him to face the legal consequences for what he had done. The feeling at that moment was truly one of satisfaction, relief, and also a touch of sadness. Sadness for having to go through all of this, but satisfaction because finally, justice was being served. After everything was exposed, Mark lost almost everything. He was fired from his job, his friends turned their backs on him, and his family disowned him. Then he started frantically trying to contact me. Messages, calls, constantly, non-stop. Once he even showed up at my doorstep, looking disheveled with a scraggly beard and bloodshot eyes from drinking. He begged for my forgiveness, begged me to take him back. His voice was pathetic, punctuated by sobs. "Ava, I was wrong. I lost everything. Now I realize you're the true love of my life." Hearing that made me sick to my stomach. But I wasn't the naive, weak Ava from before anymore. I had been through too much pain. I had risen from the ashes. I looked him straight in the eyes, my voice cold and firm. "Mark, you've said enough." I spoke each word clearly without hesitation. "I don't trust you anymore. I deserve someone much better." In that moment, I felt stronger than ever. It was the triumph of my ultimate self-respect. He might have stolen my innocence, taken my trust, but he couldn't steal my worth. Seeing him so pathetic, I no longer felt hatred, only contempt and a little pity. After the day I definitively broke things off with Mark, my life turned a new page. I decided to discard everything related to him from my mind. I focused 100% on myself, on my precious daughter, and on my career. I threw myself into work, learning more. Gradually, I regained my self-confidence, the feeling that I was valuable. I was stronger, more independent than ever. Looking at myself in the mirror, I saw a completely different Ava. Then one day, karma arrived when I least expected it. That day, I was at a crowded fair with my baby, Chloe, and Sarah. Suddenly, my eyes caught a familiar figure. He was helping carry things for a stall at the fair. His face gaunt, clothes disheveled, his hair was messy, no longer possessing the glamorous, elegant look he once had. It was Mark. He saw me. His gaze met mine, then slowly shifted to Chloe and finally settled on the baby in my arms. I clearly saw regret, jealousy, and profound anguish in his eyes. It was as if he was tormenting himself, realizing he had lost everything, and he was seeing it right before his eyes. I looked at him utterly devoid of emotion. No more anger, no more pain, just a cold, pitying gaze tinged with contempt. The person who once shattered me now looked more pathetic than I could have ever imagined. Turning my back, I continued walking with everyone else, stepping onto my path of happiness without a moment's hesitation. I never looked back. I had chosen freedom. I had chosen happiness. And one day, someone truly loved me the way I deserved. Karma isn't always about punishment. Sometimes it's about finding peace after the storm and watching the one who caused the storm get caught in their own twisted web. So, if anyone listening here is also stuck in a toxic relationship or feeling like they're not good enough, please remember, you deserve to be happy. You deserve true love. And you always have the right to choose a better life for yourself. Thank you for listening to today's story from the Guilty Notes channel. If this story resonated with you, please like, share this video, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other emotional real-life stories and valuable lessons. See you in the next video.